All right, today we're going to decode a silent threat, something that can cause way more chaos in your home than you might think: water damage.
So let me ask you a question. What's the single most destructive force in your home? Just take a second and think about it. What's the one thing that can quietly wreck your foundation, ruin everything you own, and even create major health problems?
You got it. It's not fire. Fire's loud and dramatic, but water. Water is sneaky. It's often slow, and it is far, far more common. Honestly, it's the #1 enemy of your house's structure.
So let's kick things off with our first section: water, your home's #1 threat. We need to start by really understanding what we're up against here. The real danger with water is just how fast a tiny little leak can explode into a full-blown crisis. And a lot of the time, it's happening where you can't even see it.
The damage doesn't always look like some catastrophic flood scene from a movie. A lot of the time, the signs are really subtle, kind of like the clues you see here. Things like warped floors, peeling paint, or that persistent musty smell? Those aren't just little cosmetic problems. They are giant red flags pointing to hidden moisture that could be actively eating away at your home. And that smell? That is often the very first sign that you've got mold growing.
And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures why you absolutely cannot wait. The source material is crystal clear on this. Time is your worst enemy. Water soaks into everything: drywall, insulation, wood framing, and mold can start growing in as little as 24 to 48 hours. So when this says increasing repair costs, we're not talking small potatoes. We're talking about damage that can leap from a few $100 for a quick fix to tens of thousands of dollars for a massive restoration project.
Okay, so let's move on to Section 2, the anatomy of a flood. Now, you might think a flood is just about a bad luck, right? But more often than not, it's actually a perfect storm of specific risk factors that have to do with where your home is and how it was built.
So the key here is to understand your home's weak spots. I mean, tons of homes still have plumbing from the 70s or 80s that's basically on its last legs. Or maybe your house is built on soil that has a lot of clay in it. Well, that means water can't drain away, so it just sits there, pushing against your foundation. Then you add in things like freeze-thaw cycles that burst pipes, city storm drains that just can't keep up with heavy rain, and of course the classic failed sump pump right when you need it most, and boom, you got a recipe for disaster.
All right, Section 3, the 3-phase restoration process. But what happens when the worst does happen? Well, the good news is there's a clear scientific process for recovery. This isn't about guesswork or just mopping up. It's about bringing order back to the chaos with control and precision.
It all starts with Phase 1, emergency mitigation. Think of this like triage. You're stopping the bleeding. That means getting all the standing water out and removing soaked materials that just can't be saved. Step 2 is structural drying, and this is where the real science kicks in. We're talking specialized equipment that literally pulls moisture out of the bones of your house. And finally, Step 3 is verification. This is where we make absolutely sure everything is bone dry before any rebuilding starts. So, how long does that super important drying phase take? Well, according to industry standards, you're typically looking at 3 to 7 days. And believe me, this is not a process you can rush. It takes that long for those industrial-grade dehumidifiers and air movers to get the moisture levels back down to a safe, stable point where mold simply cannot grow. And who makes up these standards anyway? That would be the IICRC. Just think of them as the official rule book for the entire restoration industry. Their protocols are what ensure a job is done right, using actual data from tools like moisture meters and thermal cameras, not just someone eyeballing it. This is what really separates a professional job from a super risky DIY attempt.
Okay, on to our next section. And this is a really critical point that a lot of people just don't realize. Not all water is equal. Where the water comes from completely changes the game. It affects the health risks, the safety gear you have to use, and pretty much the entire plan for fixing the problem.
And this table here breaks it down perfectly. You've got Category 1, that's clean water, say from a broken water pipe. Then there's Category 2, or gray water. That could be from a dishwasher overflowing and it's got some bacteria in it. But Category 3, black water, that is the really dangerous stuff. We're talking about water from a sewage backup or a flood, and it is just teeming with dangerous pathogens.
And I really want to hammer this point home. Black water is a serious biohazard. It's not a suggestion, it's a rule. Professionals have to wear full protective gear, and anything porous it touches, like your carpet, your drywall, your insulation, it all has to be carefully removed and disposed of following strict protocols. This is absolutely 100% not a situation for a DIY cleanup.
So, after hearing all of that, you're probably asking, okay, how do I stay out of crisis mode in the first place?
Well, the best strategy is always going to be a proactive defense plan for your home. And here are some simple but incredibly powerful things you can do. Test your sump pump before the big storm hits, not during it. Please make sure everyone in your family knows where the main water shutoff valve is so you can react fast. Keep your gutters clean, insulate any pipes in those cold, vulnerable spots, and hey, if you live in a high-risk area, maybe it's time to consider a proper waterproofing system. And look, if you do end up facing a water issue, it is so tempting to try and fix it yourself. But you've got to remember this warning. You might think you've dried everything out with a couple of fans, but moisture is an expert at hiding deep inside your walls and under your floors. And it's that hidden moisture that leads to huge toxic mold problems months or even years down the road.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. We all prepare for fire, right? We have smoke detectors, we have fire extinguishers, but what's your plan for the much more common, silent threat of water? Because as we've seen today, being prepared is what turns a potential catastrophe into just a manageable problem.